Hello everyone, welcome to my June 2018 haul video. Welcome back everyone to a new haul video. If you're not familiar with this series of videos that I do on my channel, it is exactly what the title suggests. I basically show all the different things I got in a specific month. This time it is June of 2018, which also happens to be my birthday month. So a lot of the things that I picked up in the month of June are related to my birthday, whether it's gifts to myself or gifts from other people. So without further ado, let me start with two of the literal biggest things that I got for my birthday, and these two are comic book omnibuses that I got from my brother. The first up here is Wonder Woman by George Perez Omnibus number 2. There is a third omnibus of this that just came out that I'm looking forward to getting in the near future, but this is volume 2, which goes right along with my volume 1 that I have, which I can't remember if I showed off in a whole video or not. Just know that I do have that already. If you are curious, this contains issues 25 through 45. This is a legendary run by the legendary George Perez. If you haven't gotten these in the omnibus form, they are collected in trade paperback form, so get them any way you can. Wonder Woman is a great character, one of my favorite characters, and I'm really glad to have this in the collection. Next up here is another George Perez related title, and that is New Teen Titans Volume 2 Omnibus. This goes right along with my Volume 1 Omnibus, which I know I showed off in a video a few months back. I'm not quite sure which month. And this is another reprint that DC Comics is putting out. They are reprinting a lot of their older omnibuses that have since gone out of print, and they are reprinting them with new covers and new bindings, which is very important because some of their older omnibuses have really bad glued binding. If you missed out on the first run of omnibuses, or if you really want this run in general and don't want to spend the big bucks on the omnibuses, this is also being reprinted in trade paperback form. This is a legendary run by Marv Wolfman and George Perez from the 1980s. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you do. It is excellent. So keeping within the realm of comics is a trade paperback of Archie, put out by Archie Comics. This was actually a gift from my friend Nick. This is actually a series that they rebooted in 2015, and these are the first 6 issues from that reboot. This is not affiliated with the current Riverdale series that is on the CW. There is a Riverdale comic that I believe is connected to that TV show, but don't quote me on that. I'm looking forward to checking this out because I've never read any Archie comics before. Next up here are actually 2 poster-sized prints of very interesting things. First up here is kind of a work print version of Wonder Woman issue number 36, coincidentally by George Perez, and it is also coincidentally the cover of the George Perez Omnibus Volume 2, which I just showed you. Here it is here. It is in glorious black and white. Sorry if you can't see it because of the glare or because it really doesn't fit in the frame, as you can see, but I will move up as close as I can to give a nice panoramic view of it. What is really cool about this is you can see that there are notes written in the margins and cool things like that. So as a big fan of Wonder Woman and DC Comics, this is something I'm definitely going to cherish. And next up here is kind of a cool concept print by an original artist who is on Instagram, but I forgot what his name is, but I will look it up and put a link to his Instagram below. And this is actually of Godzilla and kind of his rogues gallery. If you are familiar with Godzilla, you can definitely identify all of the different bad guys in this picture here. Also, if you haven't put this together yet, the channel's name is based on Godzilla. Cabzilla is kind of a cool play on words of Godzilla. As a fan of the Godzilla franchise, I'm really looking forward to displaying this very proudly. And shifting back towards the comic books, here are a slew of individual issues that I picked up. They are all of the same title, but they are from a maxi series that is not yet complete, and that is Mr. Miracle, written by Tom King. If you know the name of Tom King, it is because he is writing the current Batman Rebirth run that just put out its 50th issue. Up here, first is the director's cut of issue number 1. Director's cuts of comics are typically ones that are printed months later and have a few little extras in them that the first issues typically don't have. They have some script pages or some concept art or things like that. So first up here is that. The next one is actually a third printing of issue number 2. If you are not familiar with collecting comics, essentially if you don't buy a popular comic when it comes out, you miss out and have to wait for the reprints. And this Mr. Miracle comic is quite popular amongst fans. Here is number 3. Number 4, with Big Barda on the cover. Number 5 here with Big Barda and Mr. Miracle on the cover. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. And finally, number 9. Number 10 is coming out later in the month of July, which I will of course be picking up the day it comes out, and then 11 and 12 will come out after that, and that will be the complete run. For those of you curious, like I said, my number 2 is a third printing, and my number 5 is a second printing. So for those of you who are collecting comics and are very interested when it comes to the printings of them, I thought I would let you know. So now let's get into all of the movies that I picked up last month. First up here is a Studio Ghibli film, and that is Tales from Earthsea on Blu-ray. This is put out by G-Kids as well as Shout Factory, and this is not directed by Hayao Miyazaki, it is directed by his son, Goro Miyazaki. Next up here is one of the funnier, kind of underrated films of the year, and that is Game Night. Game Night was a film that I saw in theaters a few months ago and did a review here on the channel, and I thought it was really fun and really entertaining and really good. So please give this a watch if you haven't already and if you're interested in some good modern comedy. Next up here is a film I think more known for its replacement of one of its lead actors than for the quality of the film itself, and that is All the Money in the World. If you're not familiar with what went on behind the scenes of this film, essentially Kevin Spacey was in this movie. Some things happened with him outside of the film world that really kind of made him not a hot commodity, so they decided to replace him with Christopher Plummer, who was coincidentally the first choice to be in the role anyways, and I have to say he did a phenomenal job in it. This is the newest film from Ridley Scott. The next 5 titles are all from Twilight Time. Twilight Time was having a sale on their website of all of their 20th Century Fox titles, and some of them were ones I had been waiting to buy. This one here is one of my favorite films, probably of all time. It's a film I love, it's a film I've seen several times, and that is The Long Hot Summer, starring my favorite actor, Paul Newman, as well as his wife, Joanne Woodward, and one of my favorite people of all time in Orson Welles. I'm so happy to finally upgrade my DVD to the Blu-ray. I can't tell you how ecstatic I was to finally get this. If you haven't seen this film, please check it out. Next up here are the first of 2 films starring Audrey Hepburn, and the first up is How to Steal a Million, starring Audrey Hepburn as well as Peter O'Toole. This is a nice, fun, romantic comedy caper type movie. If you are a big fan of Audrey Hepburn, I highly recommend it. If you're a big fan of Peter O'Toole, I also recommend it as well. Next up here is Two for the Road, starring Audrey Hepburn and Albert Finney. Yet again, if you're a big fan of Audrey Hepburn, I highly recommend checking this film out any way you can. It's a very interesting look at the build-up and deterioration of a relationship, of a marriage. It is a more serious role than you typically see from Audrey Hepburn, particularly at this time in her career. Next up here is a film that is a bit of a blind buy. The only reason why I really bought it is not only because of the price, but because it stars my favorite actress of all time, and that is Ingrid Bergman in Anastasia. Like I said in a previous video, I am trying to collect pretty much all of Ingrid Bergman's work, so this is one I definitely had to add to the collection. And the last of the sale that I picked up is The Young Lions, starring Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift. 2 of my all-time favorite actors, 2 of the best actors I think we've ever had. Montgomery Clift is one of the most underrated actors ever. If you've never seen a Montgomery Clift film, I highly recommend that you do. He was an amazing actor on the same level as James Dean and Brando, and perhaps even better. The last part of this haul is completely dedicated to 4K Ultra HD releases that I picked up. I have finally made the full conversion technology-wise to 4K, so all of these are essentially rebuys of titles I already have. I kind of lied to myself saying that I wasn't going to be rebuying a lot of titles when I made that transition to 4K, but if you're a collector out there, if you're a tech-savvy person, you tend to lie to yourself a lot. So without further ado, let's get into these. First up here is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I have to say that this looks very, very good on 4K. It looks much better than the Blu-ray, which came out rather a few years ago, but I'm looking forward to getting all of them individually. Word to the wise, though, there is a complete collection box set of all 8 films of the original Harry Potter films, but they don't come with the extra bonus disc that the individual releases do have. These don't port over every extra that would have been on the DVDs in the past or on the previous Blu-ray editions, so you're going to have to kind of do some research and see which ones you really want or don't want. If you don't really care about extras at all, then by all means get the complete collection. It'll probably save you some money in the long run. Next up here is a film that is slowly becoming one of my favorite films of all time, and that may be a bit of a controversial opinion, but it is indeed my opinion, and that is Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. This is a film that looks and sounds amazing in 4K. If you're looking to upgrade a Blu-ray, upgrade to the 4K of Interstellar, because this is astonishing. I have watched this film several times and I'm just astonished by it every time. He is operating on an intellectual level that a lot of filmmakers don't have the ambition to do. Next up here is a film I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and that is Saving Private Ryan, which was directed by Steven Spielberg, which came out in 1998. Once again, the 4K edition looks and sounds amazing. It is a hell of an experience rewatching this in this new format. I can't tell you how impressed I am by how visually an upgrade 4K is. Next up here is a film that I know is not loved by many, but I actually really like this film, particularly within this Ultimate Edition cut, and that is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yet again, I know it's a very controversial opinion when it comes to this film, as well as the DCEU films in general, but I really like this cut of the movie, and I'm really looking forward to rewatching it in 4K, because Zack Snyder, for all the negativity that he gets, he is a hell of a visual director. Next up here is probably the favorite amongst the DCEU films, and that is Wonder Woman. I had to get this just because I love Wonder Woman and I love this movie. The last 3 here are, once again, films you probably have all heard of before, and you're going to be noticing a bit of a theme with all of these 4Ks that I've been showing you. First up here is Batman Begins. Next up here is, of course, The Dark Knight. And lastly is, of course, The Dark Knight Rises. The common theme that you've probably picked up is that most of these are Warner Bros. Releases, most of these are Christopher Nolan movies, and most of them are comic book related movies. They just happen to be coincidental that way. So that has been my June 2018 haul video. If you want to see anything in more depth, please let me know. I will either discuss it with you in the comments below or do an individual video about it. Once again, if you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel.